Okay. Sorry, friends. We'll start now. Okay. Right. The Frog King or Iron Henry. In old times when wishing still helped one, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful, but the youngest was so beautiful that the sun itself, which had seen so much, was astonished whenever it shone in her face. Close by the king's castle lay a great dark forest, and under an old lime tree in the forest was a well. And when the day was very warm, the king's child went out into the forest and sat down by the side of the cool fountain. And when she was bored, she took a golden ball and threw it up on high and caught it, and this ball was her favourite plaything. Now it so happened that on one occasion the princess's golden ball did not fall into the hand that she was holding up, but onto the ground beyond, and rolled straight into the water. The king's daughter followed it with her eyes, but it vanished, and the well was deep, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. At this she began to cry, and cried louder and louder, and could not be comforted. And she thus lamented. Someone said to her, "What ails you, king's daughter? Your tears would melt a heart of stone." She looked round to the side from where the voice came, and saw a frog stretching forth its thick, ugly head from the water. "Ah, old water splasher, is it you?" said she. "I am weeping for my golden ball, which has fallen into the well." "Be quiet and do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help you, but what will you give me if I bring your plaything up again?" "Whatever you will have, dear frog," said she. "My clothes, my pearls and jewels, and even the golden crown which I am wearing." The frog answered, "I do not care for your clothes, your pearls and jewels, or your golden crown. But if you will love me and let me be your companion and playmate, and sit by you at your little table, and eat off your golden plate, and drink out of your little cup, and sleep in your little bed, if you will promise me this, I will go down below and bring you your golden ball up again." "Oh yes," said she, "I promise you all you wish, if you will but bring my ball back again." She, however, thought, "How the silly frog does talk! He lives in the water with the other frogs, and croaks, and can be no companion to any human being." But the frog, when he had received this promise, put his head into the water and sank down, and in a short while came up swimming again with the ball in its mouth, and threw it on the grass. The king's daughter was delighted to see her pretty plaything once more, and picked it up and ran away with it. "Wait, wait," said the frog. "Take me with you. I can't run as you can." But what did it avail him to scream his croak, croak after her as loudly as he could? She did not listen, but ran home and soon forgot the poor frog, who was forced to go back into his well again. The next day, when she had seated herself at the table with the king and all the courtiers, and was eating from her little golden plate, something came creeping, splish splash, up the marble staircase, and when it had got to the top, it knocked at the door and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." She ran to see who was outside, but when she opened the door, there sat the frog in front of it. Then she slammed the door in great haste, sat down to dinner again, and was quite frightened. The king saw plainly that her heart was beating violently, and said, "My child, what are you so afraid of? Is there perchance a giant outside who wants to carry you away?" "Ah, no," replied she. "It is no giant, but a disgusting frog." "What does the frog want with you?" "Ah, dear father, yesterday I was in the forest sitting by the well, playing. My golden ball fell into the water, and because I cried so, the frog brought it out again for me, and because he so insisted, I promised him he should be my companion, but I never thought he would be able to come out of his water, and now he is outside there and wants to come in to me." In the meantime, it knocked a second time and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Do you not know what you said to me yesterday by the cool waters of the fountain? Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." Then said the king, "That which you have promised you must perform. Go and let him in." She went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in and followed her, step by step, to her chair. There he sat and cried, "Lift me up beside you." She delayed until at last the king commanded her to do it. When the frog was once on the chair, he wanted to be on the table. And when he was on the table, he said, "Now push your little golden plate nearer to me that we may eat together." She did this, but it was easy to see that she did not do it willingly. The frog enjoyed what he ate, but almost every mouthful she took choked her. At length he said, "I have eaten and am satisfied. Now I am tired. Carry me into your little room and make your little silken bed ready, and we will both lie down and go to sleep." The king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog which she did not like to touch, and which was now to sleep in her pretty, clean little bed. But the king grew angry and said, "He who helped you when you were in trouble ought not to be despised by you afterwards." So she took hold of the frog with 2 fingers, carried him upstairs, and put him in a corner. But when she was in bed, he crept to her and said, "I am tired. I want to sleep as well as you. Lift me up, or I will tell your father." Then she was terribly angry, and took him up and threw him with all her might against the wall. "Now you will be quiet, odious frog," said she. But when he fell down, he was no frog, but a king's son with beautiful kind eyes. And it came to pass that with her father's consent, he became her dear companion and husband. He told her how he had been bewitched by a wicked witch, and how no one could have delivered him from the well but herself, and that tomorrow they would go together into his kingdom. Then they went to sleep, and next morning when the sun awoke them, a carriage came driving up with 8 white horses, which had white ostrich feathers on their heads, and were harnessed with golden chains, and behind stood the young king's servant, Faithful Henry. Faithful Henry had been so unhappy when his master was changed into a frog, that he had caused 3 iron bands to be laid round his heart, lest it should burst with grief and sadness. The carriage was to conduct the young king into his kingdom. Faithful Henry helped them both in and placed himself behind again, and was full of joy because of this deliverance. And when they had driven a part of the way, the king's son heard a cracking behind him as if something had broken. So he turned round and cried, "Henry, the carriage is breaking." "No, master, it is not the carriage. It is a band from my heart, which was put there in my great pain when you were a frog and imprisoned in the well." Again and once again, while they were on the way, something cracked, and each time the king's son thought that the carriage was breaking. But it was only the bands which were springing from the heart of Faithful Henry, because his master was set free and was happy. Okay, that was the end of the story. What on earth? I forget how crazy some of these old tales are. Okay, hold on, just a quick break. With the princess with, I know, same. I was just like, oh, I kind of like, I don't know if you heard it in my voice, but it was just like, oh, it was very unpleasant to read. Okay, the next story that we'll be reading is, oh, sorry, did I miss anyone? Hello, Matthew. Hello, somebody. Okay, so the next story we're reading is Cat and Mouse in Partnership. Interesting. A certain cat had made the acquaintance of a mouse, and had said so much to her about the great love and friendship she felt for her, that at length the mouse agreed that they should live and keep house together. "But we must make provision for winter, or else we shall suffer from hunger," said the cat. "And you, little mouse, cannot venture everywhere, or you will be caught in a trap some day." The good advice was followed, and a pot of fat was brought, but they did not know where to put it. At length, after much consideration, the cat said, "I know no place where it will be better stored up than in the church, for no one dares take anything away from there. We will set it beneath the altar and not touch it until we really are in need of it." So the pot was placed in safety, but it was not long before the cat had a great yearning for it, and said to the mouse, "I want to tell you something, little mouse. My cousin has brought a little son into the world, and has asked me to be a godmother. He is white with brown spots, and I am to hold him over the font at the christening. Let me go out today, and you look after the house by yourself." "Yes, yes," answered the mouse. "By all means go, and if you get anything very good, think of me. I should like a drop of sweet red christening wine too." All this, however, was untrue. The cat had no cousin, and had not been asked to be a godmother. She went straight to the church, stole to the pot of fat, began to look at it, and licked the top of the fat off. Then she took a walk upon the roofs of the town, looked out for opportunities, and then stretched herself in the sun, and licked her lips whenever she thought of the pot of fat, and not until it was evening did she return home. "Well, here you are again," said the mouse. "No doubt you have had a merry day." "All went off well," answered the cat. "What name did they give the child?" "Top off," said the cat quite cruelly. "Top off!" cried the mouse. "That is a very odd and uncommon name. Is it a usual one in your family?" "What does it matter?" said the cat. "It is no worse than Crumb Stealer, as your godchildren are called." Before long, the cat was seized by another fit of longing. She said to the mouse, "You must do me a favour, and once more manage the house for a day alone. I am again asked to be a godmother, and as the child has a white ring around its neck, I cannot refuse." The good mouse consented, but the cat crept behind the town walls to the church and devoured half the pot of fat. "Nothing ever seems so good as what one keeps to oneself," said she, and was quite satisfied with her day's work. When she went home, the mouse inquired, "And what was this child christened?" "Half done," answered the cat. "Half done! What are you saying? I've never heard such a name in my life. I'll wager anything it is not in the calendar of saints." The cat's mouth soon began to water for some more licking. "All good things go in threes," said she. "I am asked to stand godmother again. The child is quite black, only it has white paws, but with that exception, it has not a single white hair on its whole body. This only happens once every few years. You will let me go, won't you?" "Top off, half done," answered the mouse. "They are such odd names. They make me very thoughtful." "You sit at home," said the cat, "in your dark grey fur coat and long tail, and are filled with fancies. That's because you do not go out in the daytime." During the cat's absence, the mouse cleaned the house and put it in order, but the greedy cat entirely emptied the pot of fat. "When everything is eaten up, one has some peace," she said to herself, and well filled and fat she did not return home till night. The mouse at once asked what name had been given to the third child. "It will not please you more than the others," said the cat. "He is called All Gone." "All Gone!" cried the mouse. "That is the most suspicious name of all. I've never seen it in print. All Gone, what can that mean?" And she shook her head, curled herself up, and lay down to sleep. From this time forth, no one invited the cat to be godmother, but when winter had come, there was no longer anything to be found outside. The mouse thought of their provision and said, "Come, cat, we will go to our pot of fat which we have stored up for ourselves. We shall enjoy that." "Yes," answered the cat, "you will enjoy it as much as you would enjoy sticking that dainty tongue of yours out of the window." They set out on their way, but when they arrived, the pot of fat certainly was still in its place, but it was empty. "Alas," said the mouse, "now I see what has happened. Now it comes to light. You are a true friend. You have devoured all when you were standing godmother. First hop off, then half done, then—" "Will you hold your tongue?" cried the cat. "One more word, and I will eat you too." All gone was already on the poor mouse's lips. Scarcely had she spoken before the cat sprang on her, seized her, and swallowed her down. And that is the way of the world. Wow, what a story! That's insane. That was really brutal. What? That was quite the short story. That was very, very interesting. Okay, hold on, quick break again. Hello, ISO. Okay, the next story is called Our Lady's Child. Near a great forest dwelt a woodcutter and his wife, who had only one child, a little girl 3 years old. They were so poor, however, that they no longer had daily bread, and they did not know how to get food for her. One morning the woodcutter went out sorrowfully to his work in the forest, and while he was cutting wood, suddenly there stood before him a tall and beautiful woman with a crown of shining stars on her head, who said to him, "I am the Virgin Mary, mother of the child Jesus. You are poor and needy. Bring your child to me. I will take her with me and be her mother, and care for her." The woodcutter obeyed, brought his child, and gave her to the Virgin Mary, who took her up to heaven with her. There the child fared well, ate sugar cakes, and drank sweet milk, and her clothes were of gold, and little angels played with her. And when she was 14 years of age, the Virgin Mary called her one day and said, "Dear child, I am about to make a long journey, so take into your keeping the keys of the 13 doors of heaven. 12 of these you may open, and behold the glory which is within them, but the 13th, to which this little key belongs, is forbidden. Beware of opening it, or you will bring misery on yourself." The girl promised to be obedient, and when the Virgin Mary was gone, she began to examine the dwellings of the kingdom of heaven. Each day she opened one of them, until she had made the round of 12. She rejoiced. In each of them she sat one of the apostles in the midst of a great light, and she rejoiced in all the magnificence and splendor, and the little angels who always accompanied her rejoiced with her. Then the forbidden door alone remained, and she felt a great desire to know what could be hidden behind it, and said to the angels, "I will not quite open it. I will not go inside it, but I will unlock it so we can see just a little through the opening." "Oh no," said the little angels, "that would be a sin. The Virgin Mary has forbidden it, and it might cause you unhappiness." Then she was silent, but the desire in her heart was not stilled, but gnawed and tormented her, and let her have no rest. And once the angels had all gone out, she thought, "Now I am quite alone. I could peep in. If I do it, no one will ever know." She sought out the key, and when she got it in her hand, she put it in the lock, and when she had put it in, she had turned it round as well. Then the door sprang open, and she saw there the Trinity sitting in fire and splendor. She stayed there a while and looked at everything in amazement. Then she touched the little light with her little finger, and her finger became quite golden. Immediately a great fear fell on her. She shut the door violently and ran away. Her terror, too, would not quit her, let her do what she might, and her heart beat continually and would not be still. The gold, too, stayed on her finger and would not go away, no matter how much she rubbed it and washed it. It was not long before the Virgin Mary came back from her journey. She called the girl before her and asked to have the keys of heaven back. When the maiden gave her the bunch, the Virgin looked into her eyes and said, "Have you not opened the 13th door also?" "No," she replied. Then she laid her hand on the girl's heart and felt how it beat and saw right well that she had disobeyed her order and had opened the door. Then she said once again, "Are you certain that you have not done it?" "Yes," said the girl for the second time. Then she perceived the finger which had become golden from touching the fire of heaven, and saw well that the child had sinned, and said for the third time, "Have you not done it?" "No," said the girl for the third time. Then said the Virgin Mary, "You have not obeyed me, and besides that you have lied. You are no longer worthy to be in heaven." Then the girl fell into a deep sleep, and then when she awoke she lay on the earth below, in the midst of a wilderness. She wanted to cry out, but she could bring forth no sound. She sprang up and wanted to run away, but whenever she turned herself, she was continually held back by thick hedges of thorns, through which she could not break. In the desert in which she was imprisoned, there stood an old hollow tree, and this had to be her dwelling place. Into this she crept when night came, and here she slept. Here too she found shelter from storm and rain, but it was miserable life, and bitterly did she weep when she remembered how happy she was in heaven, and how the angels had played with her. Roots and wild berries were her only food, and for these she searched as far as she could. In the autumn she picked up the fallen nuts and leaves and carried them into the hole. The nuts were her food in winter, and when snow and ice came, she crept amongst the leaves like a poor little animal that she might not freeze. Before long her clothes were all torn, and every bit of them after another fell off her. As soon, however, as the sun shone warm again, she went out and sat in front of the tree, and her long hair covered her on all sides like a mantle. Thus she sat year after year and felt the pain and the misery of the world. One day, when the trees were once more clothed in fresh green, the king of the country was hunting in the forest, and followed a deer. And as it had fled into the thicket which shuts in this part of the forest, he got off his horse, tore the bushes asunder, and cut himself a path with a sword. When he had at last forced his way through, he saw a wonderfully beautiful maiden sitting under the tree, and she sat there and was entirely covered with her golden hair down to her very feet. He stood still and looked at her full of surprise, and then he spoke to her and said, "Who are you? Why are you sitting here in the wilderness?" But she gave no answer, for she could not open her mouth. The king continued, "Will you go with me to my castle?" Then she just nodded her head a little. The king took her in his arms, carried her to his horse, and rode home with her. And when they reached the royal castle, he caused her to be dressed in beautiful garments, and gave her all things in abundance. Although she could not speak, she was still so beautiful and charming that he began to love her with all his heart, and it was not long before he married her. After a year or so had passed, the queen brought a son into the world. Thereupon the Virgin Mary appeared to her in the night when she lay in her bed alone, and said, "If you will tell the truth and confess that you did unlock the forbidden door, I will open your mouth and give you back your speech. But if you persevere in your sin and deny obstinately, I will take your newborn child away with me." Then the queen was permitted to answer, but she remained hard and said, "No, I did not open the forbidden door. And the Virgin Mary took the newborn child from her arms and vanished with it. The next morning, when the child was not to be found, it was whispered among the people that the queen was a man-eater and had killed her own child. She heard all this and could not say anything to the contrary, but the king would not believe it, for he loved her so much. When a year had gone by, the queen again bore a son, and in the night the Virgin Mary came to her and said, "If you will confess that you opened the forbidden door, I will give you your child back and untie your tongue. But if you continue in sin and deny it, I will take away with me this new child also." Then the queen said, to no one's surprise, "No, I did not open the forbidden door." And the Virgin took the child out of her arms and away with her to heaven. The next morning, when this child also had disappeared, the people declared quite loudly that the queen had devoured it, and the king's councillors demanded that she should be brought to justice. The king, however, loved her so dearly and would not believe it, and commanded the councillors under pain of death not to say any more about it. The following year, the queen gave birth to a beautiful little daughter, and for the third time the Virgin Mary appeared to her in the night and said, "Follow me." She took the queen by the hand and led her to heaven, and showed her there her two eldest children, who smiled at her and were playing with the ball of the world. When the queen rejoiced at this, the Virgin Mary said, "Is your heart not yet softened? If you will own that you opened the forbidden door, I will give you back your two little sons." But for the third time, the queen answered, "No, I did not open the forbidden door." Then the Virgin let her sink down to the earth once more, and took from her likewise her third child. When will you learn? Must you lose all three children? Oh goodness. Next morning, when the loss was reported abroad, all the people cried loudly, "The queen is a man-eater. She must be judged." And the king was no longer able to restrain his councillors. Thereupon a trial was held, and as she could not answer and defend herself, she was condemned to be burned alive. The wood was got together, and when she was fast bound to the stake, the fire began to burn round about her. The hard ice of pride melted. Her heart was moved by repentance, and she thought, "If I could but confess before my death that I opened the door." Then her voice came back to her, and she cried out loudly, "Yes, Mary, I did it." And straightway rain fell from the sky and extinguished the flames of fire, and light broke forth above her, and the Virgin Mary descended with the two little sons by her side and the newborn daughter in her arms. She spoke kindly to her and said, "He who repents his sin and acknowledges it is forgiven." Then he gave her the three children, untied her tongue, and granted her happiness for her whole life. Are you serious? That story did not need to be that long. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, well that was the end of that story. It was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Do they not know how impatient I am? That's true, that's true. Oh, those writers back then, back whenever the brothers Grimm wrote this story. Who knew that Nara Bear would be reading their book? Okay, the next story that we will read is the story of the youth who went forth to learn what fear was. That sounds very ominous. Okay. A certain father had two sons, the elder of whom was smart and sensible and could do everything, but the younger was stupid and could neither learn nor understand anything. And when people saw him, they said, "There's a fellow who will give his father some trouble." When anything had to be done, it was always the elder who was forced to do it, but if his father asked him to fetch anything when it was late or in the night time, and the way led through the churchyard or any other dismal place, he answered, "Oh no, father, I'll not go there, it makes me shudder." For he was afraid. Or when stories were told by the fire at night which made the flesh creep, the listeners sometimes said, Oh, it makes us shudder. The younger sat in a corner and listened with the rest of them, and could not imagine what they could mean. They are always saying, "It makes me shudder, it makes me shudder." It does not make me shudder, thought he. That too must be an art of which I understand nothing. Now it came to pass that his father said to him one day, "Listen to me, you fellow in the corner there. You are growing tall and strong, and you too must learn something by which you can earn your living. Look how your brother works, but you do not even earn your salt." "Well, father," he replied, "I am quite willing to learn something. Indeed, if it could be managed, I would like to learn how to shudder. I don't understand that all yet." The elder brother smiled when he heard that, and thought to himself, "Good God, what a blockhead that brother of mine is! He will never be good for anything as long as he lives. He who wants to be a sickle must bend himself early." The father sighed and answered him, "You shall soon learn what it is to shudder, but you will not earn your bread by that." Soon after this, the sexton came to his house on a visit, and the father bewailed his trouble, and told him how his younger son was so backward in every respect that he knew nothing and learned nothing. "Just think," said he, "when I asked him how he was going to earn his bread, he actually wanted to learn to shudder." That's actually real thunder outside. Can you hear it? There's a storm outside. Oh, goodness. And that's real rain. "If that be all," replied the sexton, "he can learn that with me. Send him to me, and I will soon polish him." The father was glad to do it, for he thought, "It will train the boy a little." The sexton therefore took him into his house, and he had to ring the bell. After a day or two, the sexton awoke him at midnight and bade him arise and go up into the church tower and ring the bell. "You shall soon learn what shuddering is," thought he, and secretly went there before him. And when the boy was at the top of the tower and turned round, and was just going to take hold of the bell rope, he saw a white figure standing on the stairs opposite the sounding hole. "Who is there?" cried he, but the figure made no reply, and did not move or stir. "Give an answer," cried the boy, "or take yourself off. You have no business here at night." The sexton, however, remained standing motionless, that the boy might think he was a ghost. The boy cried a second time, "What do you want here? Speak if you are an honest fellow, or I will throw you down the steps." The sexton thought, "He can't intend to be as bad as his words," uttered no sound, and stood as if he were made of stone. Then the boy called to him for the third time, and as that was also to no avail, he ran against him and pushed the ghost down the stairs, so that it fell down 10 steps and remained lying there in a corner. Thereupon he rang the bell, went home, and without saying a word went to bed and fell asleep. The sexton's wife waited a long time for her husband, but he did not come back. At length she became uneasy, and wakened the boy and asked, "Do you not know where my husband is? He climbed up the tower before you did." "No, I don't know," replied the boy, "but someone was standing by the sounding hole on the other side of the steps, and as he would neither give an answer nor go away, I took him for a scoundrel and threw him downstairs. Just go there and you will see if it was he. I should be sorry if it were." The woman ran away and found her husband, who was lying moaning in the corner and had broken his leg. She carried him down, and with the loud screams she hastened to the boy's father. "Your boy," cried she, "has been the cause of a great misfortune. He has thrown my husband down the steps and made him break his leg. Take the good-for-nothing fellow away from our house." The father was terrified and ran there and scolded the boy. "What wicked tricks are these?" said he. "The devil must have put this into your head." "Father," he replied, "do listen to me. I am quite innocent. He was standing there by night like one who was intending to do some evil. I did not know who it was, and I warned him 3 times either to speak or to go away. "Ah," said the father, "I have nothing but unhappiness with you. Go out of my sight, I will see you no more." "Yes, father, right willingly. Wait only until it is day. Then I will go forth and learn how to shudder, and then I shall at any rate understand one art which will support me." "Learn what you will," said the father. "It is all the same to me. Here are 50 tailors for you. Take these and go into the wild world and tell no one where you come. From where you come, for who is your father? For I have reason to be ashamed of you." "Yes, father, it shall be as you will. If you desire nothing more than that, I can easily keep it in mind." When the day dawned, therefore, the boy put his 50 tailors into his pocket and went forth on the great highway, and continually said to himself, "If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder." Then a man approached him, who heard this conversation which the youth was holding with himself. And then when they had walked a little farther where they could see the gallows, the man said to him, "Look, there is a tree where 7 men have married the ropemaker's daughter, and are now learning how to fly. Sit down below it and wait till night comes, and you will soon learn how to shudder." "If that is all that is wanted," answered the youth, "it is easily done. But if I learn how to shudder as fast as that, you shall have my 50 tailors. Just come back to me early in the morning." Then the youth went to the gallows, sat down below it, and waited till evening came. And as he was cold, he lighted himself a fire, but at midnight the wind blew so sharply that in spite of his fire he could not get warm. And as the wind knocked the hanged men against each other, and they moved backwards and forwards, he thought to himself, "You shiver below by the fire, but how those up above must freeze and suffer." And as he felt pity for them, he raised the ladder, climbed up, unbound one of them after the other, and brought down all 7. Then he stirred the fire, blew it, and set them all around to warm themselves. But they sat there and did not stir, and the fire caught their clothes. So he said, "Take care, or I will hang you up again." What? The dead men, however, did not hear, but were quite silent and let their rags go on burning. At this he grew angry and said, "If you will not take care, I cannot help you. I will not be burnt with you." And he hung them up again, each in his turn. Then he sat down by his fire and fell asleep. And the next morning the man came to him and wanted to have his 50 tailors, and said, "Well, do you know how to shudder?" "No," answered he. "How was I to get to know? Those fellows up there did not open their mouths, and were so stupid that they let a few old rags which they had on their bodies get burnt." Then the man saw that he would not get the 50 tailors that day, and went away, saying, "One of this kind has never come my way before." The youth likewise went his way, and once more began to mutter to himself, "Ah, if I could but shudder! If I could but shudder!" And a waggoner who was striding behind him heard that, and asked, "Who are you?" "I don't know," answered the youth. Then the waggoner asked, "From where do you come?" "I know not." "Who is your father?" "That I may not tell you." "What is it that you are always muttering between your teeth?" "Ah," replied the youth, "I do so wish I could shudder, but no one can teach me how to do it." "Give up your foolish chatter," said the waggoner. "Come, go with me, and I will see about a place for you." The youth went with the waggoner, and in the evening they arrived at an inn where they wished to pass the night. Then at the entrance of the room the youth again said quite loudly, "If I could but shudder! If I could but shudder!" The host, who heard this, laughed and said, "If that is your desire, there ought to be a good opportunity for you here." "Ah, be silent," said the hostess. "So many inquisitive persons have already lost their lives. It would be a pity and a shame if such beautiful eyes as these should never see the daylight again." But the youth said, "However difficult it may be, I will learn it, and for this purpose I have journeyed forth. He let the host have no rest until the latter told him that not far from there stood a haunted castle where anyone could easily learn what shuddering was, if he would but sleep in it for 3 nights. The king had promised that he who would venture should have his daughter as wife, and she was the most beautiful maiden the sun shone on. Great treasures Let me try that again. Great treasures likewise lay in the castle, which were guarded by evil spirits, and these treasures would then be freed and would make a poor man rich enough. Already many men had gone into the castle, but as yet... The story is too long. None had come out again. Then the youth went next morning to the king and said if he were allowed to watch 3 nights in the haunted castle. The king looked at him, and as the youth pleased him, he said, "You may ask for 3 things to take into the castle with you, but they must be things without life." Then he answered, "Then I ask for a fire, a turning lathe, and a cutting board with the knife." The king had these things carried into the castle for him during the day. When night was drawing near, the youth went up and made himself a bright fire in one of the rooms, placed the cutting board and knife beside it, and seated himself by the turning lathe. "Ah, if I could but shudder," said he, "but I shall not learn it here either." Towards midnight he was about to poke his fire, and as he was blowing it, something cried suddenly from one corner. "How cold we are! You simpletons," cried he. "What are you crying about? If you are cold, come and take a seat by the fire and warm yourselves." And when he said that, 2 great black cats came with one tremendous leap and sat down on each side of him, and looked savagely at him with their fiery eyes. After a short time, when they had warmed themselves, they said, "Comrade, shall we have a game at cards?" "Why not?" he replied, "but just show me your paws." Then they stretched out their claws. "Oh," said he, "what long nails you have! Wait, I must first cut them for you." Thereupon he seized them by the throats, put them on the cutting board, and screwed their feet fast. "I have looked at your fingers," said he, "and my fancy for card playing has gone." And he struck them dead, and threw them out into the water. But when he had made away with these 2, and was about to sit down again by his fire, out from every hole and corner came black cats and black dogs with red-hot chains, and more of them came until he could no longer stir. And they yelled horribly, and got on his fire, pulled it to pieces, and tried to put it out. He watched them for a while quietly, but at last, when they were going too far, he seized his cutting knife and cried, "Away with you, vermin!" and began to cut them down. Part of them ran away, but the others he killed and threw out into the fish pond. When he came back, he fanned the embers of his fire again and warmed himself. And as he thus sat, his eyes would keep open no longer, and he felt a desire to sleep. Then when he looked around and saw a great bed in the corner, "That is the very thing for me," said he, and got into it. When he was just going to shut his eyes, however, the bed began to move of its own accord, and went over the whole castle. "That's right," said he, "but go faster." Then the bed rolled on as if 6 horses were harnessed to it up and down over thresholds and steps. But suddenly, hop, hop, it turned over upside down, and lay on him like a mountain. But he threw quilts and pillows up in the air, got out, and said, "Now anyone who likes may drive," and sat down by his fire and slept till it was day. Okay, that was really weird. In the morning, when the king came, and when he saw him lying there on the ground, he thought the evil spirits had killed him and he was dead. Then said he, "After all, it is a pity he is a handsome man." The youth heard it, got up and said, "It has not come to that yet." Then the king was astonished, but very glad, and asked how he had fared. "Very well indeed," answered he. "1 night is past, the 2 others will get over likewise." Then he went to the innkeeper, who opened his eyes very wide and said, "I never expected to see you alive again. Have you learnt how to shudder yet?" "No," said he, "it is all in vain. If someone would but tell me." The second night he went back into the old castle, sat down by the fire, and once more began this old song. If I could but shudder. When midnight came, an uproar and noise of tumbling about was heard. At first it was low, but it grew louder and louder. Then it was quiet for a while, and at length, with a loud scream, half a man came down a chimney and fell before him. Hello, cried he, another half belongs to this. This is too little. Then the uproar began again, and there was a roaring and a howling, and the other half fell down likewise. Wait, said the youth, I will just blow up the fire a little for you. When he had done that and looked round again, the two pieces were joined together, and a frightful man was sitting in his place. That is no part of our bargain, said the youth. The bench is mine. The man wanted to push him away. The youth, however, would not allow that, but thrust him off with all his strength, and seated himself again in his own place. Then still more men fell down, one after the other, and they brought 9 dead men's legs and 2 skulls, and set them up and played at 9 pins with them. The youth also wanted to play, and said, Can I join you? Yes, if you have money. Money enough, replied he, but your balls are not quite round. Then he took the skulls and put them in the lathe and turned them until they were round. There, now they will roll better, said he. Hurrah, now it goes merrily. He played with them and lost some of his money, but when struck 12, everything vanished from his sight. He lay down quietly and fell asleep. The next morning the king came to inquire after him. How has it fared with you this time? Asked he. I have been playing at 9 pins, he answered, and I have lost a couple of farthings. Have you not shuddered then? What? Said he. I have made merry. If I did but know what it was to shudder. The third night he sat down again on his bench and said quite sadly, If I could but shudder. When it grew late, 6 tall men came in and brought a coffin. Then said he, Oh, that's certainly my little cousin who died only a few days ago. And he beckoned with his finger and cried, Come, little cousin, come. They placed the coffin on the ground, but when he went to it and took the lid off, a dead man lay therein. He felt his face, but it was cold as ice. Stop, said he, I will warm you a little, and went to the fire and warmed his hand and laid it on the dead man's face, but he remained cold. Then he took him out, sat down by the fire, and laid him on his breast, and rubbed his arms that the blood might circulate again. As this also did no good, he thought to himself, When 2 people lie in bed together, they warm each other, and carried him to the bed, covered him over, and lay down by him. After a short time the dead man became warm too, and began to move. Then said the youth, See, little cousin, have I not warmed you? The dead man, however, got up and cried, Now I will strangle you. What? Said he, is that the way you thank me? You shall at once go into your coffin again. And he took him up, threw him into it, and shut the lid. Then came the 6 men and carried him away again. I cannot manage to shudder, said he. I shall never learn it here as long as I live. Then a man entered who was taller than all others and looked terrible. He was old, however, he had a long white beard. You wretch, cried he, you shall soon learn what it is to shudder, for you shall die. Not so fast, replied the youth. If I am to die, I shall have to have a say in it. I will soon seize you, said the fiend. Softly, softly, do not talk so big. I am as strong as you are, and perhaps even stronger. We shall see, said the old man. If you are stronger, I will let you go. Come, we will try. Then he led him by the dark passages to a smith's forge, took an axe, and with one blow struck an anvil into the ground. I can do better than that, said the youth, and went to the other anvil. The old man placed himself near and wanted to look on, and his white beard hung down. Then the youth seized the axe, split the anvil with one blow, and struck the old man's beard in with it. Now I have you, said the youth. Now it is you who will have to die. Then he seized an iron bar and beat the old man till he moaned and entreated him to stop, and he would give him great riches. The youth drew out his axe and let him go. Wow. The old man led him back to the castle, and in a cellar showed him 3 chests full of gold. Of these, said he, 1 part is for the poor, the other is for the king, and the third is yours. In the meantime it struck 12, and the spirit disappeared. The youth, therefore, was left in darkness. I shall still be able to find my way out, said he, and felt about, found the way into the room, and slept there by his fire. The next morning the king came and said, Now you must have learned what shuddering is. No, he answered. What can it be? My dead cousin was here, and a bearded man came and showed me a great deal of money down below, but no one told me what it was to shudder. Then, said the king, you have delivered the castle from enchantment, and shall marry my daughter. That is all very well, said he, but I still do not know what it is to shudder. Then the gold was brought up and the wedding celebrated, but however much the young king loved his wife, and however happy he was, he still always said, If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder. And at last she was angry at this. Her waiting maid said, I will find a cure for him, and he shall soon learn what it is to shudder. Oh my gosh. She went out to the stream, which flowed through the garden, and had a whole bucket full of, what's this, gudgeons? Brought to her. At night when the young king was sleeping, his wife was to draw the clothes off him and empty the bucket of cold water with the gudgeons in it over him, so that the little fishes would sprawl about him. When this was done, he woke up and cried, Oh, what makes me shudder so? What makes me shudder so, dear wife? Ah, now I know what it is to shudder. What the heck was that story? It gets weirder and weirder. This is crazy. I think that's a good place to stop because the next one is, I think, a very famous. Oh, I could read it maybe. We've got like 5 minutes to go. Do you want me to read another short story, or do you want to call it a day? We are reading the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. I bought this book because it's public domain, so I can read it without worrying about copyright. We'll do one more? Okay, we'll do one more. Okay, the last story for today is The Wolf and the 7 Little Kids. I think this is a famous one. There was once upon a time an old goat who had 7 little kids, and loved them with all the love of a mother for her children. One day she wanted to go into the forest and fetch some food. So she called all 7 to her and said, Dear children, I have to go into the forest. Be on your guard against the wolf. If he comes in, he will devour you all, skin, hair, and all. The wretch often disguises himself, but you will know him at once by his rough voice and his black feet. The kids said, Dear mother, we will take good care of ourselves, and you may go away without any anxiety. Then the old one bleated and went on her way with an easy mind. It was not long before someone knocked at the door and called, Open the door, little children. Your mother is here and has brought something back with her for each of you. But the little kids knew that it was the wolf by the rough voice. We will not open the door, cried they. You are not our mother. She has a soft, pleasant voice, but your voice is rough. You are the wolf. Then the wolf went away to a shopkeeper and brought himself a great lump of chalk, ate this and made his voice soft with it. Then he came back, knocked at the door of the house and cried, Open the door, dear children. Your mother is here and has brought something back with her for each of you. But the wolf had his black paws against the window, and the children saw them and cried, We will not open the door. Our mother has not black feet like you. You are the wolf. Then the wolf ran to the baker and said, I have hurt my feet. Rub some dough over them for me. And when the baker had rubbed his feet over, he ran to the miller and said, Strew some white meal all over my feet for me. The miller thought to himself, That wolf wants to deceive someone, and refused. But the wolf said, If you will not do it, I will devour you. Then the miller was afraid and made his paws white for him. Yes, that's how some people are. That's actually the sentence. Okay, so now the wretch went for the third time to the door, knocked at it, and said, "Open the door for me, children. Your dear little mother has come home and has brought every one of you something back from the forest with her." The little kids cried, "First show us your paws, that we may know if you are our dear little mother." Then he put his paws in the window, and when the kids saw that they were white, they believed all that he said was true and opened the door. But who should come in but the wolf? They were terrified and wanted to hide themselves. One sprang under the table, the second into the bed, and the third into the stove, the fourth into the kitchen, the fifth into the cupboard, and the sixth under the washing bowl, what the heck, and the seventh into the clock case. But the wolf found them and used no great ceremony. One after the other, he swallowed them down his throat. The youngest, who was in the clock case, was the only one he did not find. What's a clock case? When the wolf had satisfied his appetite, he took himself off, laid himself down under a tree in the green meadow outside, and began to sleep. Soon afterwards, the old goat came home again from the forest. Ah, what a sight she saw there! The door stood wide open, the table, chairs, and benches were thrown down. The washing bowl lay broken to pieces, and the quilts and pillows were pulled off the bed. She sought her children, but they were nowhere to be found. She called them one by one after the other, but no one answered. At last, when she came to see the youngest, a soft voice cried, "Dear mother, I'm in the clock case." She took the kid out and told her that the wolf had come and had eaten all the others. Then you may imagine how she wept over her poor children. At length, in her grief, she went out, and the youngest kid ran with her. When they came to the meadow, there the wolf lay by the tree and snored so loud that the branches shook. She looked at him on every side and saw that something was moving and struggling in his gorged belly. "Ah, heavens," said she, "is it possible that my poor children, whom he has swallowed down for his supper, can still be alive?" Then the kid had to run home and fetch scissors and a needle and thread, and the goat cut open the monster's stomach, and hardly had she made one cut. Then one little kid thrust its head out, and when she cut further, all six sprang out, one after the other, and were all still alive, and had suffered no injury whatsoever, for in his greediness the monster had swallowed them down whole. What rejoicing there was! They embraced the dear mother and jumped like a sailor at his wedding. The mother, however, said, "Now go and look for some big stones, and we will fill this wicked beast's stomach with them while he is still asleep." Then the 7 kids dragged the stones there with all speed and put as many of them into his stomach as they could get in, and the mother sewed him up again with great haste, so that he was not aware of anything and never once stirred. Okay, last page. When the wolf at length had his sleep out, he got on his legs, and as the stones in his stomach made him very thirsty, he wanted to go on a well to drink. But then he began to walk and move about. The stones in his stomach knocked against each other and rattled. Then cried he, "What rumbles and tumbles against my poor bones? I thought it was 6 kids, but naught but big stones." And when he got to the well and stooped over the water and was just about to drink, the heavy stones made him fall in, and there was no help, but he had to drown miserably. When the 7 kids saw that, they came running to the spot and cried aloud, "The wolf is dead! The wolf is dead!" and danced for joy round the well with their mother. And that was the end of that story. Oh my goodness. That's crazy. You know, we only read 20 pages, but that was quite a trip. Okay, well that is the end of our book reading for today. That was a good hour. Thank you everyone for joining me. I hope you enjoyed. Oh goodness, what happened to Nora? She's gone. She decided to go to sleep. Where did I put her? Oh, there she is. Okay. She's like, I'm out of here. Stream's done.